Hello and welcome to our new show, Secret Sauce, where we have questions posed by you guys and ourselves to people within the industry to have a deeper look at what goes on within within the esports industry. In this season, we're tackling coaching, and we have two experienced coaches with us, Vetrezz and Mr.G. We have myself, Jamil, and Omar as well on the show. And without further ado, let's start. What are the signs a team is set up to fail? And if they do, when is it a time for a coach to step in? And when is it time for another role to step in? So you have some teams who, as we previously talked, like organizational culture might not fit in, they don't have a strategy. They might not have all the essential resources for them to succeed. Like what could some early signs on that be? And when is it someone like a coach to step in? When is it someone for like a manager, someone from another team to step in? Who wants to start us off? Vetrezz?
Volunteer Vetrezz, yeah.
Yeah, Vetrezz, you want to start us off?
Yeah, so that's actually a hard question. So, what I have written down about that is that I think that the first sign of a team that is starting to actually fall apart, is how I call it, is when there's like a building of groups in a team which are basically stacking up against each other. Like there will be players in teams that will like each other more than others, but the second it starts separating or like splitting up the team is always the first indicator that that team is going to fail. So that is the point where a coach has to instantly step in the second he notices this to somehow fix that. But at the point where a coach notices that, it could be even too late already. And the next step of that would be that the coach consults the manager or some higher ups of the org and tells them about the situation. And then they can step in and like remind everybody that they're under contract or they're signed and they have to fulfill their duties. It's what it is if you think about it. So the first sign of a team that's set up to fail is actually when they split up in groups for me. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I tend to, when I think of the question, I think of setup being something that's done to them in some kind of ways. And then you gave the first example of when when you're experiencing the first elements within a team. If I go from the other side now and say, okay, the team is set up from the outside, it's being put together. It's not responsible. It's going through recruitment, initial phases of team building and that sort of thing. Then I think that for me, the big killer is that there's no clarity about what the team is about, what the expectations of the org and the managers are, what the strategy is going to be to build the team up for success. I think that when you kind of just put a bunch of guys together and say we're going to compete in the VCTs or the VRL, and that's it. That's the end of the discussion. We're just getting together to compete, and at the end of it, we need you to win. I think you're being set up to fail. There's no growth plan, no growth process. Then taking what Vetrezz said, which is when you're watching for signs, even if you have gone through the clarity and the transparency and you've told them exactly what you want, and now you're watching it, you're observing group dynamics, you're observing how do they handle instructions, failure, those sorts of things. And then I 100% agree with Vetrezz, you start to see dynamics within the team. And now there I would also expect either a straight up the coach dealing with strategy to step in very clearly. Team manager if conditions are not playing correctly, team manager is making sure that they are in the right place at the right time, ready to go, and all those sorts of things. And if they're not doing that, then team manager. And I always think, here's the rule for me: whoever's closest to the team goes first. Yeah, it's as simple as that. And if you need to, then you take the circle out to whatever level you need to. But hopefully you can handle all of that fairly close to the players. Yeah.
Because they'll have the biggest impact within the team. Like if they have that emotional bond with the team, they understand them. They've at least had a conversation. Like people on the higher ups, they don't know the players. At least, and again, this is from my experience. Usually they just onboard them. Like the recruitment process isn't getting to know someone. It's getting to know someone professionally. But they don't know like how they are as a team, as an individual within a team, their tendencies, how do they communicate. Maybe also they've had some candid conversation with them that creates a bond. So I get it. That makes it more impactful.
Yeah,
also, having a framework. I'm sorry, no, my bad. Having a framework set up also in the first place, I think helps. Like not having that framework set up is also like setting up to fail. Like the lack of a safety net, if that makes sense. Yeah. That in case this happens, like proper risk management. If we have a falling out within a team, how do we handle it? If we have lack of communication, if we have to remove someone and we have to bring someone new, any part of the staff, how does this impact the team? How do we manage this? How do we maintain team cohesion? Because there are different stages of team, forming, learning, storming, performing. So we need them to stay performing on a high level. So how do we maintain that, for example, is something that should be asked from the get-go. So I think that's also how, to an extent, a team can also be set up to fail.
Yeah, Vetrezz, I think you've also had a lot of experience with when people who are not close to the team, right, are stepping in prematurely, stepping in before they should, not giving the coaches and the managers literally the chance to sort things first.
Yeah, it's always hard, like when people that are not directly involved in the team are like the bystanders. I always call them, like in German, I call them basically something like the fans that sit in a football stadium and just yell from there and say, yeah, if you do this and that, then the team will 100% succeed, and because you're not doing that, you lose, and I know it's better and all of that stuff. This is how it reminds me always when there's like people not really involved in a team trying to fix things that either don't need to be fixed or which they have no clue about why it's even happening in the first place. So I just like the idea of higher ups just stepping in without being in the team environment the whole time at all. So yeah, that's also the point that Mr.G said.
Yeah, it's what you call the person sitting up in the stand. I call the cheap seats. Yeah, that means just for no reason at all they're yelling out from the cheap seats, and sometimes that's just a distraction. I mean, where are you on this one, Omar? What do you think?
Like what you said about team culture, maybe it's like selecting the correct players is important, but it's also important to know what the correct player is, or how to define the correct player. Like this is a great player. They perform very well in game, but they do not perform well under these circumstances. Like this is a great player, but they cannot reach us to the win. They can get us only to a certain limit. That this is because maybe the culture around him in this particular team, they are not aiming for the top 1 position. So maybe it's just the team culture where you need to aim higher. Maybe the contract doesn't. We're not bringing you here for the first position. We're just bringing you here because we need. The organization needs to keep its image as maybe competitive, but not necessarily the number one team. So maybe it could be a cultural thing. Maybe it could be the goals of the organization itself.
Yeah, I think where we're all going in a way is clarity.
Yeah.
I think it doesn't matter whether it's esports or outside of esports. If we say you're a professional team, a lot of people focus on creating the team. They forget to explain what it means to be professional. Right? Professional is the behavior, the standard of behavior. Team is what you have to do in terms of dynamic. Yeah, professional is how you carry out your duties. And so I tend to think that sometimes what I've experienced is a lot of nice, like, you know, we're all buddies and friends and high fives, but then we get away with little inconsistencies and things like that. And that is when the standard of behavior is dropping. Yeah. And again, people closest to the center should be the ones to act first and then taking it out from there.
Yeah, I agree. Also that managers or people who are shouting from the stands need to understand from the get-go their level of influence as well, so that they don't just shout from the stands. They can go to the pitch and actually contribute to the to the gameplay. You know, they can actually be active members within the team. A lot of people don't understand their level of influence sometimes in that sense, you know.
Yeah, I think Vetrezz, our experience would be that they should not come down to the pitch, right?
Yeah.
They should hang around for the victory party later on and shake everybody's hands and go, it was a job well done.
It's like they can come for the debriefing or for the celebration, whatever it is. But while the tournament is happening, it's more like a safe space for the whole team environment, in my opinion, because everything from outside is basically an anomaly that didn't happen before and that can bring the whole team out of focus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're saying they're more disruptive. Okay. But okay, I understand. Like they could explain more like their strategy and where they're headed, but I think that also should be trickled down to team managers and the coaches. So sure. I totally understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying.
You know, it's as simple as if you give them, I'm just going with what Vetrezz says, the fewer faces they have to deal with, yeah, because people might think they're saying the same thing, but they're not. Yeah. And what you want is the team hearing the team manager and the coach and the performance coach and the analyst who are all on one path saying what they need to say. Otherwise, and it's very common, you have teams in again, other sectors. Suddenly you have somebody swoop in from above, an owner, a directing manager or whatever, and saying what they say, and then they leave, and then you hear players go, who were they?
Yeah.
I had that before. I know exactly what you mean, and that's the worst part.
Yeah, it's just confusion. You know, there's a job to be done. Let them do it. Let them be good at it. Let them enjoy it. And then everybody celebrates at the end.